Derek's smirk cut through the office air like a knife.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Thanks to you, I'm now a world-renowned designer. I owe you one.
My name is Stephen Andrews, and I'm a designer at one of the biggest design firms in the country. Derek Thompson, my colleague, had just stolen my design concept and submitted it under his name to a major competition, winning the bid. Cut the crap! I started to confront him, but Derek leaned in close, his breath hot against my ear.
That's Mr. Thompson to you now. I'm gonna be your superior soon, so watch how you speak to me. And make sure to use proper respect when addressing me from now on, got it?
In high spirits, Derek walked away before I could finish what I had to say. Go ahead and laugh while you can, I thought to myself. I have a secret. And soon, Derek Thompson would find himself falling into an abyss of his own making. To understand how I got here, you need to know where I came from. I was raised by my grandparents after losing my parents at a car accident when I was too young to remember them. The memories of my parents are like faded photographs, present but unclear, preserved only through the stories my grandparents would share during quiet evening conversations. My grandparents' house was a modest but spacious haven in the suburbs, complete with a small vegetable garden that became the heart of our home. For a growing kid like me, it was the perfect environment to thrive in. The neighborhood was peaceful, filled with the kind of quiet dignity that comes from well-maintained lawns and familiar faces. Mrs. Henderson, our next-door neighbor, would often stop by with fresh-baked cookies, tell me how much I looked like my father. He had that same determined look in his eyes, she'd say, patting my head. Those moments helped me feel connected to the parents I'd lost. Of course, there were times when the weight of being an orphan would settle heavily on my young shoulders. During school events when other kids' parents would show up, or on Father's Day when we made cards in class, the absence felt particularly acute. But my grandparents had an incredible way of knowing exactly when I needed extra comfort. They would wrap me in their warmth and love, turning those potentially difficult moments into opportunities for connection. My grandfather would take me fishing on weekend mornings, teaching me about patience and persistence. Life's like fishing, Steve, he'd say, adjusting my grip on the rod. Sometimes you have to wait for the right moment, and sometimes you have to know when to reel it in. My grandmother, on the other hand, was the artist of the family. She would sit with me for hours, teaching me how to draw the flowers in her garden. Every petal has its own story, she'd explain, guiding my hand across the paper. Just like every person has their own story to tell. Their main passion, though, was their vegetable garden. It wasn't just a hobby, it was their pride and joy. They had even managed to get a permission to sell their produce at the local farmer's market. The excitement in their voices when they talked about their plans for the garden was contagious. However, despite their enthusiasm and the quality of their vegetables, sales were disappointingly low. I remember one particularly Saturday morning at a farmer's market. The sun had barely risen, and we were setting up our stand. My grandmother had arranged the vegetables with such care, vibrant tomatoes, crisp lettuce, and plump zucchinis all displayed perfectly. Yet as the morning wore on, I watched people pass by our stand without a second glance. I don't understand it, my grandfather sighed, wiping his brow. These vegetables are as good as any you find in the finest stores. Better even. They're grown with love. My grandmother placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. Maybe we're just not presenting them right, she suggested. Their words stuck with me. The vegetables looked and tasted great, so why weren't they selling? If only we could communicate their appeal to everyone. That's when inspiration struck. I picked up my sketchbook, a constant companion since my grandmother had given it to me on my 10th birthday. Finding a quiet spot on the porch overlooking the garden, I began to draw. The scene before me was perfect. My grandmother watering the thriving summer vegetables, the morning light catching the water droplets, making them sparkle like tiny diamonds. I spent hours on that drawing, capturing every detail, the way the water droplets clung to the leaves, the rich colors of the ripening vegetables, and most importantly, the love and care evident in my grandmother's gentle movements. The vegetables in my drawing seemed to gleam with vitality, looking even more appetizing than they did in real life. The next market day, we displayed that drawing alongside the vegetables. What happened next was nothing short of magical. Steve! Steve! My grandfather's voice boomed across the market square. The vegetables are selling like hotcakes! Your drawing did it! My grandmother beamed with pride, her eyes glistening. Your artwork has such wonderful power, sweetie. I'm so proud of you. For the first time, I felt I could finally do something to repay my grandparents for all their care. That moment marked the beginning of my journey as an artist, though I didn't know it then. School had always been a struggle for me. My report cards were a sea of C's and D's, with the occasional B thrown in to break the monotony. Being an orphan didn't help matters. Kids can be cruel when they sense any kind of difference. The whispers in the hallway, the pointed fingers, the mock sympathy from teachers. It all created a perfect storm of isolation. "Hey, orphan boy," they call out during recess. "Where's your mom?" "Oh, wait." I still remember Tommy Martinez, the class bully, cornering me behind the gymnasium one day. "Must be nice getting sympathy grades from the teachers," he sneered. "Poor little Steven with no parents." But somehow, I had a natural talent for illustration. Art class became my sanctuary, the one place where I could truly express myself. While other students struggled with perspective and proportion, my hands seemed to know exactly what to do. The paintbrush became an extension of my thoughts, the canvas a window into my soul. Mrs. Collins, my art teacher, recognized something in me that others didn't. "Steven," she'd say, staying after class to help me develop my techniques, "you have a gift for capturing not just what things look like, but how they feel. That's rare." As my artwork began winning school competitions and local contests, the dynamic started to shift. The same kids who had once mocked me now wanted me to draw their portraits. The bullying and teasing gradually faded away, replaced by a grudging respect for my abilities. I started getting commissions from teachers wanting illustrations for their classrooms, from local businesses needing logos, even from the school yearbook committee. Each success built upon the last, creating a foundation of confidence that had been missing from my life. When I won the statewide youth art competition my junior year, the local newspaper ran a story about me. "Local orphan turns pain into art," the headline read. I hated the focus on my personal tragedy, but my grandparents couldn't have been prouder. They framed the article and hung it in their living room, right next to my winning piece, a detailed illustration of our vegetable garden in full bloom. As I experienced firsthand how art could change my environment and daily life, I began to truly understand what my grandmother had said about artwork having the power to move people. It wasn't just about making pretty pictures. It was about visual communication, about touching hearts and changing minds through illustration. During my senior year of high school, I had a pivotal conversation with my grandfather. We were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors I itched to capture on paper. "You know, Steve," he said, his voice carrying the wisdom of years, "when your parents died, your grandmother and I worried we wouldn't be enough for you. But watching you turn your pain into something beautiful, seeing how you've used your art to help others, well, I think they'd be mighty proud of the man you're becoming." His words cemented my decision. I wanted to pursue a career in illustration and design, helping people just like I had helped my grandparents with their vegetables. I wanted to create art that made a difference, that solved problems and touched lives. College wasn't easy. My grades from high school meant I had to fight for every opportunity, and money was tight despite my grandparents' best efforts. I worked part-time at a local print shop, learning the practical side of design while studying theory in my classes. The long hours were exhausting, but each day brought me closer to my dream. Professor Martinez, my advanced design instructor, became a mentor of sorts. "Andrews," she'd say, reviewing my work with her trademark intensity, "you have raw talent, but talent alone will cut it in this industry. You need discipline, precision, and most importantly, integrity." Those words would come back to haunt me later. When I finally graduated, my hard work paid off in ways I never expected. I landed a job at one of the most prestigious design firms in the country, the kind where everyone knows the name, where landing an interview alone is considered a major achievement. The day I got the offer letter, I rushed to my grandparents' house to share the news. My grandmother was tending her garden as usual, my grandfather reading his newspaper on the porch. "I got it!" I called out, waving the letter like a victory flag. "They actually hired me!" My grandmother dropped her gardening tools and hugged me, soil-covered gloves and all. "Oh, sweetie, I knew you could do it." My grandfather's eyes misted over as he read the offer letter. "Son," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "your parents would be so proud. We certainly are." People were surprised when they heard where I had been hired. The whispers started again, but this time they were different. How did he manage that? Must have connections. Probably just filling in a quota. But I was too excited about my future to let them bother me. However, when I actually started working, I faced a reality far different from my ideals. First hint came during orientation, where the HR manager spent more time talking about billable hours than creative vision. "Remember," she said, her corporate smile never wavering, "efficiency is key. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We're here to deliver what the clients want, on time and under budget." Day after day, it was just monotonous work, following instructions exactly as given. Create this banner, adjust that logo, make it pop, make it subtle, make it whatever the client asks for, without question or creativity. My desk became my prison, surrounded by the gentle hum of fluorescent lights and the clicking of keyboards. The evaluation criteria seemed to be solely based on how quickly you can complete tasks, not how innovative or effective the designs were. One morning, about 3 months into the job, I found myself staring at my computer screen, trying to muster enthusiasm for yet another minor logo adjustment. Sarah, a veteran designer who had been with the company for 15 years, noticed my expression. "Let me guess," she said, leaning against my cubicle wall. "You're wondering if there's been some mistake, if this is really a design firm after all." I nodded, grateful someone understood. "Listen, Steve," she continued, lowering her voice. "This place used to be different. We used to create, innovate, push boundaries. But somewhere along the way, it became about the bottom line. Most people either adapt or leave. The rare few who try to change things, well, let's just say it doesn't usually end well." But I wouldn't accept that this was all there was. I started entering company design competitions, hoping to showcase my real abilities. Each entry was a labor of love, combining technical skill with creative vision. Yet somehow, they would always be rejected before the final selection. The first few times, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't as good as I thought. Maybe I needed to study current trends more, understand the market better. I started staying late, researching market trends during my free time, even using my lunch breaks to conduct street surveys. "Another late night, Andrews?" the security guard would ask as I left the building well after dark. "Just trying to improve, Joe," I'd reply, clutching my research notes. But eventually, I noticed a pattern. The selection committee members were always the same faces, the same small group making all the decisions. And the winners? They were always from the same pool of designers, regardless of the quality of their submissions. It wasn't just me who noticed this pattern. During lunch breaks, I catch snippets of conversations in the break room, whispered complaints about the system. "Did you see Mark's submission?" one designer would murmur. "Best work he's ever done, and they didn't even look at it." "Well, what do you expect?" another would reply. "He doesn't play golf with the committee members." The rumors started circulating more openly. Stories about designers entertaining committee members after hours, about private meetings in expensive restaurants, about favors exchanged for selections. The toxic atmosphere became almost tangible, weighing down the creative spirit of the office. I refused to let it break me, though. I kept telling myself I could do better, that genuine talent and hard work had to count for something. My grandfather's words about patience and persistence echoed in my mind. One particularly frustrating afternoon, while I was analyzing market trends on my monitor after finishing my assigned work, I heard a familiar male voice behind me.
"What's this, Steve? Another one of your little street surveys? Man, you never learn. You know this won't help you get promoted, right?"
The sound of that voice made me sigh involuntarily. While turning around, I knew exactly who it was. "What do you want, Derek? Don't you have some executives to schmooze with?" Derek Thompson leaned against my desk, his expensive suit carefully pressed, his smile calculated.
"Come on, Steve. Why so cold? Your jealousy won't get you anywhere. Oh, I get why you're jealous, sure."
Derek and I had started the company on the same day, fresh-faced graduates with big dreams. While I believed in letting my work speak for itself, Derek had immediately started playing the corporate game. He spent all of his free time cultivating relationships with supervisors, never missing a lunch meeting or after-work drinking session. I once overheard him in the break room coaching a new hire.
"Listen, kid,"
he'd said, stirring his designer coffee.
"Talent is maybe 10% of success here. The other 90, it's all about who you know and who knows you."
The frustrating part was that Derek wasn't just getting by on networking alone. His designs were generally eye-catching, with a flair for drama that caught attention. Lately, he'd been getting selected for competitions more frequently, becoming a regular among the usual favorites.
"Well, unlike you,"
Derek continued, straightening his tie with a flourish,
"I don't have time for these little surveys. After all, I got that competition waiting for me."
That competition? The upcoming event he referred to was for designing the logo for a major national sporting event, held every 4 years. It was the kind of opportunity that could make or break a designer's career. "Yeah, right," I muttered, trying to focus on my work.
"Maybe all your little research will finally pay off. Though there's no way you'll beat me."
He chuckled, clearly enjoying himself.
"Face it, Steve, you're just not cut out for the big leagues."
I was amazed at his talent for putting others down while maintaining that corporate smile. Still, I felt I should tell him. I'm not even entering that competition. Words hung in the air for a moment. Win or lose, it was just another rigged game. For someone planning to go independent, It wasn't worth my time. I knew my design would be rejected before the final selection anyway. Derek's reaction was immediate and explosive. He stood up and slammed his hand on my desk, causing several nearby designers to jump. Then he leaned in close, his voice dropping to a whisper that dripped with contempt.
Steve, you're really wasting your time here. What are you even working for? Just collecting a paycheck? Win this competition, you get a major promotion. I'm definitely winning and getting promoted. I'll be high enough to order you around. We might have started at the same time, but we're different. I'll show you the difference between me and a paycheck-collecting loser who's too scared to even enter big competitions.
As Derek strutted away, I noticed several colleagues quickly averting their eyes, pretending they hadn't been watching our exchange. The frustration burned in my chest, but I didn't have the energy to argue back or try to get even. I watched his retreating back and returned to analyzing my survey responses, trying to ignore the whispers around me. A few days later, I was walking back from the restroom when I heard raised voices coming from one of the conference rooms. The sound of Derek yelling was unusual. Despite his condescending nature, he typically maintained a polished, professional demeanor. Curiosity got the better of me, and I quietly positioned myself near an empty room adjacent to the source of the commotion.
For crying out loud! Do you even care about your work? Do it properly!
Derek's voice carried through the thin walls. A female voice responded, barely audible. Yes, I'm sorry.
Whatever! Useless! Get out of here!
The venom in Derek's voice was shocking. Yes, I'm sorry. Excuse me. The door opened, and I recognized Lucy Walker, one of our newest designers. Her shoulders were hunched, her usual bright demeanor completely dimmed. Fresh out of college, Lucy had made quite a splash when she first joined the company. Her portfolio had impressed everyone, and her genuine enthusiasm for design was infectious. There was no need to yell at a new employee like that, especially not someone like Lucy. The dark expression on her face was a far cry from her usual cheerful smile. Making a quick decision, I pretended to be passing by and called out, "Oh, hey Lucy, hard at work?" She startled at my voice, quickly trying to compose herself. "Oh, Mr. Andrews. Yes, just finished up." "Hey, please just call me Steve," I said, noting how she was trying to discreetly wipe her eyes. "Say, do you ever go to cafes?" "Cafes?" She looked confused by the sudden change in topic. Sometimes, I guess. There's this new place that opened up near the office. Their lunch menu looks amazing, but I feel awkward going alone as a guy. Would you like to join me today? My treat, of course." Her face brightened slightly. "Oh, that place. I've been wanting to try it too. Sure, I'd love to. I could use a change of pace." Despite my awkward invitation, I'd never asked a female colleague to lunch before. Lucy agreed readily. As we walked to the cafe, I noticed how she kept glancing over her shoulder, as if afraid Derek might appear. The cafe was a cozy spot, with warm lighting and the rich aroma of coffee in the air. We found a quiet corner table, and after ordering, I carefully broached the subject. "How are you holding up, Lucy? I get worn down myself when Derek constantly putting me down. Just the other day, he called me a loser for not entering that big competition. When I checked my reflection in the bathroom earlier, I looked pretty defeated." She gave a weak laugh. "That's not true at all, though you do always look very focused at your desk." Her attempt at deflection was obvious. She was still thinking about the earlier confrontation. "You think so? Though when I saw you in the hallway earlier, you looked pretty serious yourself. Did something happen?" Lucy's hands tightened around her coffee cup. For a moment, I thought she might not answer, but then she looked directly at me. "Oh, was it that obvious?" "Huh." She tried to laugh it off, but her voice wavered. "Actually, right before you called out to me, Mr. Thompson was reprimanding me. He said I lacked the mindset of a designer." "The mindset of a designer, huh?" I couldn't help but scoff. "I don't have that either," I thought to myself. Working at this company, how could anyone develop a true designer's mindset? Day after day of the same routine, creating designs exactly as instructed. What part of that makes someone a designer? "Steve, you feel the same way, don't you?" I hadn't realized I'd been muttering aloud until Lucy's question brought me back to the present. "Oh, yeah, I do feel that way, honestly." I found myself opening up to her. "You know, I had this dream. I wanted to use my designs to help people, just like I once helped my grandparents. I worked so hard to get hired here, thinking this company would help me achieve that dream." I told her about my grandparents' vegetable garden, about that first drawing that had helped their sales. As I spoke, Lucy's eyes grew increasingly interested. Man, when I got that job offer, my imagination ran wild with possibilities. But reality turned out pretty different. None of the work I dreamed of doing before joining is actually happening here. Derek's right about one thing. It probably is a waste of time to keep staring at my monitor at this company. That's why I paused, realizing I was about to reveal something I hadn't told anyone yet. Well, I'm actually thinking about quitting and starting my own business. I caught myself mid-ramble and apologized. Oh, sorry. Here I am complaining about the company to a new hire with a bright future. Besides, my story isn't important. I wanted to hear what you had to say. Lucy shook her head vigorously. No, it's fine. So, you're thinking of starting your own business? I can see why you consider that. She paused, seeming to gather her courage. Actually, after hearing you open up, I feel like I can tell you something too. Would you like to hear it? When I nodded, she glanced around the cafe nervously before continuing. This stays between us, okay? What Lucy revealed next was far heavier than I expected from a new employee. Her voice trembled as she spoke, her fingers fidgeting with her napkin. She had been keeping a secret that she couldn't tell anyone, and because of the secret, she was considering leaving design work altogether. The weight of it seemed to press down on her shoulders as she spoke. It started small at first, she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. Derek would ask me to help with little things, touching up his designs, offering suggestions, but then it escalated. He demanded I create entire designs for him, claiming he was too busy with important meetings. When I tried to refuse, she trailed off, her hands shaking slightly. He threatened to tell everyone I was incompetent, she continued, that he'd make sure I never advanced in the company. He kept reminding me that he had connections, that he could make or break my career. I was surprised she confided something so insensitive in me, but I understood the desperation of needing someone to talk to. Lucy, thank you for trusting me with this. I promise I won't leave this table. I leaned forward, making sure she could see my sincerity. If I may say something, I think it would be a huge waste if you quit design. You know, I've been following your previous work. Everything you create is absolutely brilliant. And even though others might not be talking about it anymore, I've always believed in your talent. Her eyes widened in surprise. You've seen my work? Of course! That series you did for the children's hospital? The way you incorporated healing and hope into the design without making it feel forced? It was incredible. A gifted designer like you shouldn't be crushed in a place like this. I want you to keep being the exceptional designer you are. If you're willing to keep going, I'll support you every step of the way. Lucy's eyes welled with tears, but this time they seemed different from the ones she'd been holding back earlier. Steve, thank you. With you backing me up, I feel like I can spread my wings. Please, let me count on your support. Our conversation shifted to lighter topics after that. Something had changed between us. We'd formed a connection, shared an understanding of the challenges we faced and the dreams we held. After that day, I decided to work with Lucy on entering that major competition. We both knew the risk. Derek's reaction if he found out, the potential backlash from the committee, but something felt different this time. Maybe it was because we were working together, or maybe it was because we both had nothing left to lose. From then on, Lucy and I would meet after work to brainstorm designs. We weren't paid for this time, but collaborating with someone who shared my values made this sessions fulfilling and enjoyable. Sometimes we disagree, but even those moments felt productive. We were genuinely engaging with design, challenging each other's ideas, and growing as creators. What if we incorporated elements of traditional sports imagery, but gave them a modern twist? Lucy would suggest, sketching rapidly. That could work, I'd respond, building on her idea. Maybe we could use negative space to create multiple layers of meaning. This, I thought, was how designers should work, bouncing ideas off of each other, pushing boundaries, creating something meaningful. One evening during those productive meetings, Lucy had taken a day off, so I was working alone at the office. The floor was nearly empty, the silence broken only by the hum of my computer and my own muttered thoughts about different design possibilities. If we adjust the angle here, maybe add more depth to the shadows. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled me from my concentration. Looking up, I saw Derek's reflection in my monitor before he came to a stop behind me.
Well, Steve? Still here? Don't tell me you're still working on those silly surveys.
His voice trailed off as he caught sight of my screen.
Oh, wait a minute. Weren't you saying you weren't answering the competition?
I turned to face him. What's it to you, Derek? You seem confident enough, so what does it matter what I do?
Huh, true enough.
He straightened his tie, a habit I'd noticed he had when feeling smug.
No matter how hard you try, you can't match me. That fact won't change. Keep struggling, you scary little paycheck collector.
As Derek turned to leave with his usual mocking attitude, something made me call out one last time. Hey, Derek! You should stop while you can. This is your last chance. He froze mid-step.
Huh? What are you talking about, Steve? What are you trying to say?
You know exactly what I mean. My voice was calm, but my heart was racing.
Are you kidding me? Who do you think you're talking to? I'm gonna win. You're the loser. We're on different levels, got it? Next time, remember to use proper respect when addressing me, okay?
With that, Derek stormed off, but not before I caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Was it fear? A few days later, I arrived at work to find the office buzzing with unusual excitement. A crowd had gathered in one corner, their voices carrying across the usually quiet space. Derek's design was selected for the competition. He's been on such a roll lately, and now his design will be the official logo. The crowd parted slightly as I approached, allowing me to see the competition results posted on the wall. Derek stood beside them, basking in the attention. When I glanced at the winning design, my blood ran cold. There, displayed as Derek's winning entry, was the design that Lucy and I had been working on together. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The voices around me seemed to fade into a distant buzz as I stared at our design, our creation, with Derek's name attached to it. I'm not sure how long I stood there before my body started moving on its own. I grabbed Derek's arm and pulled him away from his admirers, ignoring his protest.
Hey, what's the deal, Steve? Overwhelmed by your colleague's victory? You don't need to pull me. I'm not going anywhere.
When we were far enough from the crowd, I confronted him. Derek! That design! That's my design! His response knocked the wind out of me.
Yeah, and?
My grip on his arm went slack from pure shock at his casual admission.
Look, Steve, let me ask you something.
He straightened his suit jacket as if he were having a normal conversation.
If you had submitted that design yourself, do you really think it would have been chosen? It would have been rejected before even reaching the selection committee, right? Listen, in this industry, good design alone doesn't cut it. You need connections. A design that would have been ignored if submitted normally has now become a winning piece thanks to me. I'm the one who brought your design into the spotlight. You should be thanking me.
Each word he spoke made my stomach turn. Listen, that design was...
Dumb of Lucy, right?
He cut me off, his smile growing wider.
That makes it even better. A design by two rookies would have been rejected just by looking at the names. I did you both a favor by submitting it. You should be grateful.
Derek maintained his arrogant grin throughout our confrontation, refusing to listen to anything I tried to say. The office chatter continued in the background, stark contrast to the tension between us.
Well, the result speaks for itself. I won. But competition this big, promotion is guaranteed. You could say this is my first step toward becoming a world-renowned designer. Steve, like I said before, we may have started at the same time, but we're different. I'm going to be your boss now. Remember to use proper respect when addressing me. See ya.
Hey, Derek, we're not done here. That design... He spun around, his face suddenly hard.
Whoa there, Steve. Didn't I just tell you? It's Mr. Thompson to you. Know your place, you paycheck collector.
Still riding high on his victory, Derek walked away without listening to anything else I had to say. I stood there, fists clenched, watching him return to his admirers. Over the next few weeks, the design was officially adopted as the logo for the sporting event. Given the national significance of the event, it received extensive media coverage. Every news outlet seemed to be covering the story of the brilliant young designer who had created such an innovative logo. Mr. Thompson is amazing! Isn't it incredible? Think that someone right here in our office designed such an important logo. The office had transformed into a continuous celebration. People who had never spoken to Derek before were suddenly finding excuses to stop by his desk. Even our CEO, a woman who rarely showed her face in the office, made a special appearance. She strolled through the office in her immaculate suit, her heels clicking against the floor as she approached Derek's desk. Derek, I've been hearing great things about your work. This is a significant achievement for our company. Congratulations. Derek preened under the attention.
Oh, CEO, you're too kind. But thank you so much.
Just as I was thinking about what a shameless schmoozer he was, a whispered conversation nearby caught my attention. Uh-oh, people are saying Derek's logo was plagiarized. The word sent a ripple through the office. A small crowd gathered around their colleague's computer screen, where they were showing a social media post comparing two logos, Derek's winning design and a design created by another designer years ago. The similarities were beyond coincidental. They were practically identical. Wait, these are almost exactly the same. Which one is Derek's design? I can't even tell. Topics spread through the office like wildfire, and the celebratory atmosphere quickly turned tense. Whispers replaced congratulations, and people began avoiding Derek's desk rather than clustering around it. Derek himself was still trying to brush it off, claiming it was nonsense and probably just someone jealous of his success. But the post went viral and turned into a full-blown scandal. Social media was ablaze with comparisons of the two designs, and design blogs began picking up the story. That post is everywhere now. This is getting serious. I sighed, thinking I tried to warn him. I was heading back to my desk when I felt an ominous presence behind me. Before I could turn around, Derek grabbed my shoulder with excessive force and spun me around. That hurts, Derek. What do you want? His face was contorted with rage, all pretense of professional courtesy gone.
What do I want? Are you kidding me? This is all your fault.
He grabbed my collar and started shaking me, spewing profanities that drew shock gasps from our colleagues. His perfectly styled hair had come undone. His expensive suit wrinkled as he gripped my shirt.
You did this to me! Look at this mess! My name is being dragged through the mud! How are you going to fix this, huh?
I tried to tell you, I managed to say despite his grip on my collar. Derek raised his fist, but before he could strike, a sharp voice cut through the chaos. Derek? Steven? What exactly is going on here? Our CEO stood at the entrance to our section, her expression stern. The office had gone completely silent. Both of you, my office now. Released from Derek's grip, I straightened my shirt and followed the CEO, aware of the dozens of eyes watching us walk to our office. Derek trailed behind, his earlier bravado replaced by nervous energy. The CEO's office was exactly what you would expect. Minimalist, expensive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. She sat behind her massive desk, gesturing for us to take the chairs opposite her. Now then, she said, her voice carefully controlled. Would someone care to explain what I just witnessed? Derek immediately launched into his defense, his words tumbling out in a rush. He claimed he had only submitted my design because he knew it would have been a better chance of winning under his name. He knew my entries always got rejected early in the process, so he did me a favor by submitting it himself. I should be grateful that my design got to see the light of day. And besides, Derek insisted, he had only submitted my design. If it happened to be similar to some other designer's work from years ago, that was my fault, not his. He wasn't the one who plagiarized. His excuses were as ridiculous now as they had been before, but I let him talk himself into a corner before speaking. Derek, stop it. This isn't your first time, is it? He turned to me, sweat visible on his forehead.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about how you've been taking other people's designs and presenting them as your own. This isn't the first time you've done this.
What are you even saying?
His voice had risen an octave. Lucy told me everything, about how you've been systematically stealing other people's designs and ideas and presenting them as your own. Lately, you've even been forcing Lucy to create designs and then claiming them as yours. I was wondering why you've been doing so well recently. They were all Lucy's designs. The CEO's eyebrows rose slightly as she listened. The secret Lucy had shared with me that day at lunch wasn't just about Derek's recent behavior. It was about his pattern of plagiarism throughout his time at the company. When he tried to force Lucy to design something for this competition too, she'd finally found the courage to refuse. I can still remember Lucy's trembling voice as she recounted their confrontation. Mr. Thompson, I can't do this anymore, she told him.
What do you mean you can't?
I can't help you anymore.
What? The only reason your rookie designs even got selected was because of me.
That's not your skill. Those designs were mine.
Hey, Lucy! Wait! Damn it!
I turned back to Derek in the CEO's office. So when she refused, you panicked and stole the design from my computer. Isn't that right?
Come on! You're just making stuff up! Where's your proof? Show me proof!
Derek's voice had taken on a desperate edge. I have it right here. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. The email exchanges between you and Lucy. I showed Derek and the CEO the emails that Lucy had given me, which contained Derek's demanding messages ordering her to create designs for him. The timestamps, the attached files, the threatening language, it was all there. The CEO, who had been listening silently with her hand over her mouth, finally spoke. Her voice was quiet, but carried an undercurrent of steel. Stephen, thank you. This situation requires serious action from the company. Derek, we'll discuss your termination details later. Both of you may return to work for now. As the CEO stood to leave, Derek desperately called after her, his composed facade completely shattered.
CEO, wait, please! This isn't just me. Everyone's been doing this kind of thing all along.
The CEO paused at the door but didn't turn around. After listening to Derek's plea, she left without a word, the click of the door closing echoing with finality. Later that week, the CEO held a press conference that made headlines across the design industry. She acknowledged Derek's plagiarism and announced his termination, offering a formal apology to both the original designer and the public. The company's reputation took a hit, but her swift and decisive action helped mitigate the damage. Since the logo had received extensive media coverage when it was first selected, this incident became a major scandal in the design world. Design blogs and industry publications ran detailed analysis of the plagiarism, and discussions about ethics and design dominated professional forums. Of course, Derek's logo was withdrawn, and it was announced that a new logo would be selected through a public competition. The organizing committee, eager to distance themselves from the scandal, implemented new verification procedures to prevent similar incidents. Several designs were chosen from the public submissions for a final vote, and amazingly, the winning design was the one Lucy and I had officially submitted together. This time, our names were attached to our work, and the recognition was sweeter for being honestly earned. As for Derek, the plagiarism scandal received international attention, effectively ending his design career. Being fired from the company certainly didn't help either. The last I heard, he left the design industry entirely. It's questionable whether he had ever had any real design talent to begin with. Meanwhile, Lucy gained legitimate international recognition for winning such a major project. The morning after the announcement, I found her at my desk, practically bouncing with excitement. Steve, can you believe it? We actually won! Her eyes were shining with genuine joy, so different from the defeated look I first seen her in. Lucy, congratulations! I'm so happy for you! Thank you! But... She paused, suddenly serious. This wasn't just my achievement. It was our collaboration that made this possible. That's why I want to continue creating designs with you, Steve. I feel like together we can keep making amazing work. Please? It's an honor to be invited by a world-class designer, I said, smiling at her enthusiasm. But I'm sorry. Like I said before, I want to create designs on my own terms. As I mentioned earlier, I don't want to be bound by corporate restrictions. I want to design freely, following my own vision. Would it be okay if I came with you? Lucy's voice was quiet but determined. Huh? I want to work with you, Steve. I've seen how you approach design, how you really care about making a difference. I want to be part of that. And so, I left the company and started my own design firm. Lucy left too, and now we work together in our independent studio. Thanks to Lucy's talent and our combined reputation from the competition, we're fortunate to always be busy with work. We create our own designs and present them directly to clients, both individuals and companies. Our philosophy is simple. We create designs that solve problems and touch hearts, just like that first drawing I made for my grandparents' vegetable stand. Last week, my grandparents visited our studio for the first time. My grandmother's eyes welled up with tears when she saw my old vegetable stand drawing framed on the wall. See? She said, squeezing my hand. I told you artwork had power. I'm finally able to do the kind of work I've always wanted to do, on my own terms. Perhaps illustration and design really do have the power to move people, just as my grandmother said. Maybe we'll even inspire others to pursue their own creative visions. Looking back now, I realized that what happened with Derek was a necessary step in my journey. It taught me the importance of integrity in design. It led me to find a true collaborative partner in Lucy. I'll continue to believe in my abilities and in the joy of our clients, dedicated to creating work that makes people happy. After all, that's what design should be about. Not climbing through corporate ladders or winning competitions, but touching lives and solving problems through creative vision. The trophy from our competition win sits on a shelf in our studio, but it's not the centerpiece. That honor belongs to a simple framed sketch of an elderly woman tending her vegetable garden, water droplets gleaming on fresh produce. My first real design, and still my most meaningful.